Welcome everyone to Blender.Today live. We are live. Give me a thumbs up if everything is okay, because there are so many people and the title is catchy. It's a Blender 2.80 release date, and that's what we are going to talk about, because finally we have a date, more like a month. Of course, the release is not like something you just say, hey, here's the release. It has to be like packed, it has to be tested. So in a way, there is a release day. It's during July this year. You gotta be specific. July this year. So yes, stay tuned for more on this today on this episode. There is also news on the interface changes. Last week here in Amsterdam, there was the homestretch project, like a mini code quest, but not about coding, more about the 2.80 project itself, how to proceed, how to wrap up this project, and how to continue forward, because there is a lot of hype on 2.80, right? That we all know, but there is also like this feeling like, oh, if this feature doesn't get in 2.80 or 2.8, it will never get done. But actually 2.80 is just like the first 80. Yeah? It's just the first of many releases to come. 2.80, it's been worked on for like years, but after the first release, the idea is that the release progress will go into the microphone needs to be picked. Okay, there. Let's see if this fixes it. But the release is supposed to be every 3 months, every 4 months. So ideally, you're gonna have 3 or 4 releases per year. So okay. Let me know if the audio is clipping now. I just fixed it, but I think it should be okay now. I don't see any red lines anymore. So let's get to business. There was no meeting notes last week, unfortunately. But is it okay? Is the audio fine? But if the meetings last week, like every Monday, were suspended because most of the core developers were here in Amsterdam. They got together. There was like a full week of meetings and talking about it, and just basically, thank you for letting me know that everything is okay. So at the end of the week, the plan was to have a release plan. So let me get more in frame here. So the release plan, basically, mid-May, there will be, like, this is posted, by the way, you can check on Code's blog, but in mid-May there should be like a feature freeze, like, okay, everything all the remaining features that should be done, they must be done. Like, there shouldn't be any new changes. So the API, even though the API is sort of stable now, there are still a few changes here and there, but there is a lot of work that to be done on the remaining projects. For example, the top bar. That is one big project that 2.8 is bringing there. Together with the top bar, I think the other one is like the tool system, and there has been a few changes in this regard that we're gonna see now in actual Blender, because some of them were committed already. Then there is the first week of June where developers focus on updating the user manual. There is a full week where the developers are not going to be coding much, but more like writing documentation for updating the manual, so everybody is up to date with what's going on. Then the mid-June fix all high priority bugs. So there's right now around 40-50 high priority bugs. What is a high priority bug? Is a feature that has remaining issues that are not even allowed to be in 2.8. Like, it can go out with it. For example, in the left click keymap, and by default, you have to press right click to scrub on the timeline. That is not how it should be. That is one high priority bug that should be fixed before the release, and there are a few others like that. So in order to have the best experience possible. And yeah, July 2.80, the first release. July, let's say July. Let's not put a 1st of July or the end of it. Let's just mark it as July. But yes, this project cannot drag any longer. It's been so long, and the project is being used in production. And also, a release is more like a stamp that you put on a software, right? Because you have access to Blender every day. You can download it every day, and every day it's a bit more stable than it was the day before. So just like the release you're gonna get in August or in June, it's not gonna differ much from like July one. So anyway, that is like the big thing. Let's see what's new in Blender. Like the main thing that has changed this week, I just compiled all the way. I have here my compilation 2 minutes before the beginning of the live stream, just very latest. And here you will notice, if you're used to using the tool system, let's make this window slightly bigger so everybody, including myself, can see better. So one of the things that changed recently and is going to change also at the end of the, like when this patch gets further completed, is the tool system. So the when was it? Like the last few weeks after the Spring Open Movie project finished, the animators, the animator teams, got together and made a presentation to the team here, internally, about the things of 2.8, of after using one year of full 2.8 in production. What were the things that were most annoying, or that it could be improved to make the speed, the workflow faster? One of them is the tool system. The tool system is really great if you're using like if you're used to other software, maybe if you're just starting with Blender, or if you're modeling, then it's amazing. But if you're animating, it's not really that. I mean, you can have some features, for example, like the breakdowner when you're animating, which is a great tool, but you also have a shortcut for it. So maybe you don't use the tool system that much. And one of the things of the tool system that was getting in the way was the transform, or like the gizmos for transformation. This is something that has changed now, and it's more like Blender 2.7. Basically now when you're even like selecting an object, you can have the gizmos for transformation regardless of the tool that you're in. So it behaves like 2.7. You can, here from the little drop down that appears here in the top bar, you can choose, for example, the object gizmo, the rotation, or the moving, the rotation, or the scale. This is pretty much the same that it used to be in 2.7. There used to be here, you could press on the little icon down here and you could choose which kind. So it's the same in 2.8. It's just shown here in the drop down, in the popover up here. There is also a shortcut to enable it. It's Ctrl-tilde. You can toggle them on or off, and this will toggle the gizmos per object for the active object. So you can see it's like a shortcut. And that's pretty much it. It's basically bringing back the 2.7 functionality for that specific gizmo. I really love this change because I think the transform is something that you even if you're like doing annotations or you're doing any other tool, it's always good to have. It shouldn't be part of a tool itself. It's something that will speed up workflow a lot more, because in 2.7 that's one of the things that it makes it faster. So never going to Adobe. No, of course not. Thank you everyone, by the way, for all the comments. It was very nice. The chat is on fire. We have guests today, by the way, so ask your questions on Blender.Today. There should be a thread now. Someone made it by the community. Blender.Today live here. Awesome. Here all the questions. Interesting. People are already asking questions. Maybe it should be one with the actual video linked to the live stream. But yes, let's use this one, the Blender.Today live 58. And let's ask the questions over there. I posted the link on the live stream, so let's move on. That's like the big thing that changed, and there is another thing that will change in the Blender interface, is bringing the top bar back to the not back actually, because it was never implemented, but basically No, it's not ton. But basically, it will mean that the top bar that now houses a bunch of features and a bunch of settings about the active tool. For example, if you have the translation, if you have many of these features, especially it shines when you're sculpting and when you're in grease pencil, for example. It's very handy to have it up here. But sometimes when you are in object mode, for example, it takes over all of the interface without actually being that much useful. So also another issue that it has is that it's global, right? So even if you're not using a tool from this specific editor, if you go to another editor, then if you switch this editor to something else, for example, then the thing is still there. So it can be a bit annoying if you go to the dope sheet, for example. It can get a bit annoying. So now the 2.8 way of doing it, not yet, but it will be implemented for 2.80, is basically to move the top bar back to the editor. So it will be part of this one editor, and everything will be more like part of it. The same with texture painting, for example. If you're doing it in the image editor, you're gonna have it right there. The rest of the settings is gonna be the same, but basically we're gonna give you like this much more space everywhere else in every other editor, but of course not in the 3D view, but you're gonna be able to collapse it just like you can at the moment. Just same functionality, but in one editor. Then more features, more updates in the user interface. This one, it's nice, but it's not a huge fan yet because I don't use it, but is the preview. The preview option here in the material settings for either Eevee or cycles was kind of broken now in 2.7, and also it was lacking some of the like shining, some of the features that Eevee had, for example. So now this has been fixed, and also new types of previews have been added. So if you're previewing, for example, a plane, a sphere, or a cube, you're not going to see much difference. Also for hair, you're going to see much difference, but then there is this new type, the shader ball. It's added now to it. I think it's pretty common in other softwares too, but basically it allows you to see the preview of your shaders, of your whatever you're working on here in this little window, which I mean, you kind of have it in the viewport, right? You can just switch to render and then you're gonna see it. The benefit of this is that it's a preview that can be used, for example, for when we have the asset manager, then you can see all the materials rendered with that. Also, it includes specific types for when you're making cloth, for example. Gives you a nice, very nice kind of preview. And also liquid. It has a tiny splash where you can test for example, the thickness of your material, or how glossy it's gonna be, or how metallic it's like mercury, your liquid is gonna be. So this is, of course, this is just a mesh. So it's just to simulate how it's gonna look. Unfortunately, for this to work, the monkey has to go away, which I'm a bit sad, because I would rather replace the Blender logo with a monkey face here. Just to not make Blender too similar to the rest of the softwares, right? Like we have to keep the monkey around us. But yeah, that's the one thing. Everything else should work as expected, except for a few features that I noticed that, for example, this is still a work in progress, but for example, this assumes that the preview has a subsurface scattering, but if you're gonna see it in the viewport, then you have to enable subsurface scattering in the render settings, right? So this, for example, now I enable it in the render settings, now I see it in the viewport, but even if this is disabled here, you're gonna see it available, enabled here in the render. So yes, but yeah, no, Susan is not gonna go away. It's yes, F for respects for the monkey. I hope we can bring it back. Maybe we can just change this Blender logo here for the monkey. It's just come on, Blender. Having a Blender logo inside of Blender is like self-high-fiving. No, we should have the monkey back. Give your love for the monkeys. Put some monkey emojis. Let's bring it back. More features. Then the grease pencil feature. There is a new feature that makes possible to draw, to have the like a gradient on the brush that you're painting on. So for example, by default, it's not enabled. It's not set to a value. And also, like for example, if I make a drawing here, let's make it a bit bigger. Grease pencil draws with lines, but per material, you can change the type of the stroke to be line, dots, or boxes. So boxes was already there, basically makes little boxes, and dots was also already there, which is pretty nice if you want to make dots. So I look at the amount of monkeys. Thank you, thank you, just the love that it's getting, Suzanne. Then we should also bring, you know, like in 2.4, when you will add a monkey, it will say hoo hoo hoo. And yes, maybe we shouldn't bring that one, but look at the love it's getting. The sorry, can't stop laughing. What I was mentioning is the option per dot to have a sort of like a fading effect. So you can enable it in the option settings, border opacity, and it will apply to the new strokes that you do. So for example, if you tweak it here in the options, border opacity, we have to make this wider, by the way, because now I can really read it. But maybe also should have another name. Maybe it should be somewhere else. But allows you to fade the border of your stroke, which is why would you want that? For example, well, what if you're simulating some sort of watercolor effect? That is, this allows you to have that, especially if you have it like less strong, and then you have a color that is not so ugly. So for example, there, it allows you to have this effect of like watercolor-ish. Then it's just basically one slider, and there is a new option too that allows you to draw. For example, if you have a texture on your stroke, it's gonna be a bit more obvious if you just choose texture as a type of stroke, but it also works for solid. So it's called follow drawing path, and it will change the direction of your stroke followed according to where you move the mouse. So basically it's gonna just follow whatever you're drawing, which is awesome. If you disable it, you're gonna see the difference. Basically, every stroke is has its own perfect line, which if you're making like decals or if you're making texturing, then maybe you want that. But if you're actually drawing with a texture on your brush, you want to have it enabled. It's enabled by default too, and it's a per material setting. It's not per layer, I forgot. I mixed that one up. Awesome. Well, let's move on. What a beautiful demo. Look at that. Can I be a demo artist now? All right. More options, reorder. This is a small one. It's a change in the interface. Is the these properties tabs got reorder. Maybe you don't notice because the reorder is a bit subtle, but basically it groups them in categories. So there is the tool settings on the top. Then there is a group for like scene settings, like scene level settings, for example, render, output, view layer, all three are together. Then you have the scene settings and the world, because the world is one per scene, right? But then you have the settings for object level, which are all grouped as well. You have the object itself, then underneath you have the modifiers. The modifiers used to be more on the bottom, now they're up here because modifiers are per object. Then you have particles, then physics, because they're also like some sort, like when you enable physics, it's basically adding for example, when you add a soft body physics, then it's basically adding a modifier, so it's also object level, so it makes sense that it's all tied up. Then you also have the object constraints, and you have more like the mesh data or like the object data. If you select a camera, for example, it stays in the camera, and then if you have a mesh, the same. If you have a lamp, the same. And this is going to be at the bottom, except for meshes where you have materials. But then for objects that do not have materials, they're going to be at the bottom, so it's also easier to spot. Before, they used to be here right next to the object. It was object and object data, but I think it being at the bottom makes it easier to always look for it at the bottom of this list. And then there is a separator, and then there is textures. Textures, you could argue that they make sense next to material, but there is a separator because textures usually are something more disconnected from whatever you have selected, because you have, for example, for brushes or for a constraint, not a constraint, but a modifier, for example, like a displace, can have a texture. So it's connected, but it's not it's connected to everything basically. So yeah, that is it with the news. And I think I covered most of the news so far. I hope that my guests are coming soon. I think I covered everything. We can start going into the questions. I like the reordering of the tabs. Thank you. That's pretty nice. Also, by the way, speaking of the tabs, it's still hard to find them without colors, and developers are aware of that. So one of the high priority bugs, it's actually called a bug because Blender doesn't function really well without it, is the color for the tabs. So the icons are going to have the color of the type of data they're working with. So this will probably stay just as white. Then there is shading. Then there is modifiers, which are blue. Then there is meshes, for example, mesh data or object data is usually green. And then you have, again, the materials, which is a type of shading, which is usually red. So yeah, there is that. Why are you so serious? Am I serious? Sorry, I didn't mean to. Let's read some of the comments. I always love reading comments. By the way, thank you everyone for the nice comments here on the thread. Everybody's super excited about it. I think everybody's waiting 2.8 just as much. There will be a blog post, by the way, coming up. I have here some videos from last week. So this is not edited. This is completely raw. So don't mind the editing. I was just trying to follow people around so you can see a little bit of what was going on last week here in the home stretch. So basically, having the artists, in this case, for example, Hjalti as an animator, together with Willem, who is working on the user interface, and then there is Jack Luke, animation nodes, also working next to it. Again, this is it's moving a lot because I'm gonna edit it. I'm gonna make it stable. I'm gonna do a bunch of things to it just to make it, well, look great. And then I was trying some artsy takes down there, and also sneaking into the developers meeting here, just trying to not be noticed by lots of people. But this is how developers look like here. Unfortunately, Dalai I had to leave already. He's back in Brazil, but he's gonna work also full time for Blender, starting like in not too long from now. Then there was also discussions about hiring more people because the development fund is doing well, but it could do better. So consider joining. Then also reorganization about the team and who's gonna take care of which part. So it's pretty exciting in the future that there is ahead for Blender and Blender 2.8. There was also discussions about the patches, about how to implement them and how to proceed and which ones could be part of 2.81, 2.82, and also about in which order to present them, because sometimes you can have great patches, but if they're not ready for the release, or if they're like here, this is a weekly meeting, by the way, if they're not ready, or if they're not like bug free for the release, then they shouldn't be put in the master, because the idea is to get 2.80 as stable as possible as soon as possible. So here I was just recording everybody having, at the end of the week, we got together and we see what each developer or each artist did during the week. In this case, it was a developer special. So it's pretty fun to see everyone everyone together. It's like a big family that we can hopefully increase and make bigger soonish. All right, let's go to the questions. Blender.Today. Have some water here. Here, sponsored by CodeQuest. Let's see, Blender.Today. Oh, nice, it's already on fire. Yay, can upvote it. All right. So thank you, Dorian, for making the thread. Here, the first question is by Thinking Polygon. I just want to know when the sculpt mode will be back. We'll have back the brush panel that displays all the brushes available at the same time. The way it is now is very difficult to manage. Find or switch brushes, especially if you have several custom brushes spread under different tools. People are starting to think this is a bug. There was a change. What Thinking Polygons is talking about here is that there was a change recently, some weeks ago, about unifying the brush system, how it looks when you're in different painting modes. The issue, though, is that the brush system is also shared for the sculpt mode. So it looks consistent between like vertex paint, texture paint, and everything paint, but also looks consistent with sculpting, which is not always what you like. The workflow for one and the other are different. So the sculpt mode has to be treated separately, differently, and we need your feedback on that. There is a thread already, I think, on developer.blender.org. If I'm not wrong, I could look for it, but I don't remember exact number, but you should check it out. I will try to find it and maybe answer this, because the more people can chip in and talk about it, then the better. We should try and make it more efficient for sculpting. So yeah, let's find a brush system. I don't remember Unify here. No, this is a different. I think it is a different one. But basically, we should try to tackle this issue for 2.80 as soon as possible. Maybe like reunifying the whole brush system is a different step. For the future, there is no time to do it right now, but at least the interface shouldn't be confusing and should be as efficient as possible. Another question that PK Go asks, my only request is about the knife tool. I think it should be turned into a powerful modeling tool that can do more than one thing at a time. Right now, you can cut through many objects, only selected one, and if you make a mistake, you have to start all over. Yeah, that's the issue with model tools, but I think it needs like a completely different approach to the tool itself. So I'm not sure it's gonna fit into 2.80, but I agree with the changes you suggest. Another thing that I forgot to mention that happened last week, which will probably make happy a lot of users that are switching from like Maya to Blender, or like different softwares to Blender. They will be happy to know that there is now a new keymap that is being developed that is called the industry standard keymap, industry compatible keymap, basically. So what it does, it changes the most basic features inside of Blender to match what the industry is using, basically. So the idea is to take the most basic functions, like, okay, moving in the viewport. Maya does it this way, then Max does it this way. Cinema 4D, and just put the industry tools there, and then which one wins. And in this case, it was done, for example, you can change it, by the way, from the splash screen if you're just starting Blender, or you can also go to the keymap in your user pref, and then choose industry compatible. And you will, if you're familiar with other softwares, you're gonna do amazing things. But if you're not familiar like I am, you're gonna find out that, for example, for panning, you can do Alt left click and drag, Alt middle click for panning, and then Alt right click for zooming, which will make life easier for so many people. except when they look at tutorials, because they're going to have the tutorials are probably going to be following the Blender default. So keep that in mind if you're going to try and use this keymap. The idea is to have the industry compatible keymap have the least amount of changes possible, so that way you can continue using Blender just as normal, but the functionality, the navigation at least, should match other settings. So here are my guests. Hey, oh my gosh. Hey, all right, come over. Here, behold, Blender, actual Blender developers. So here every week I get here talking about Blender development, but I'm not actually a developer. Here you have Campbell Barton, clap, 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 and Bastien Montan, Ideas Man 42 and Mont 29 in the chat or in the community. So, how are you guys?
Fine.
So good.
Fine.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, so funny. If you have any questions, okay, people are already saying welcome, but we have a list of questions where I usually go and talk about in Blender today. So, do you guys follow these live streams, by the way? No?
Sometimes.
It's okay to say, no?
Sometimes, but not always the time to check.
Well, you kind of follow the development already, you know? So it doesn't make much sense. But audio could be louder, okay, or maybe we could be louder. Also, I'm gonna. Okay, so I hope maybe we can get closer to the microphone. Just. It's I don't do this often, by the way. It's so many people, but here's the microphone. Let's try to do our best. So the way the show works, basically, I spend the first half showing actual Blender. Everybody's waving. Actual Blender changes. For example, this week there was a change with the tool system, right? Like the changes that you did, Campbell, right? To make it more like 2.7. So I was explaining that in the first half. Then some changes in Grease Pencil, and then in the second half, I ask questions to the community so they can ask. Clap, clap, clap. It's very exciting. Yes, it can be distracting, but yeah. So last week we were all together here to talk about to wrap up basically the 2.80 project. I already mentioned this to people online, so they're aware of it. But how was it for you? Because you come from far away. How was it for you to be together with the developers? Is it really something that you see we should do more often? Is it something that could 2.8 happen without it, for example?
With that meeting, like maybe not the code quests were really useful. That one is nice, mostly because like speaking face to face with everybody is much more efficient. A way to have discussions, especially on somewhat complicated topics. But
yeah, especially 2.80 is a huge project, so there are many topics that is hard to talk in like right online, or how to like test new things if you want to sit next to an artist or just try something new. And then I think that's the big thing, right? So all of this is thanks to the Blender Fund, by the way. So keep it going on there. Let's see if okay, people are okay. Let's go to the questions, because then I will make good use of your time. Then there is a request about the knife tool, about being more powerful, for example, being able to do more than one thing at a time. And my reply was, but basically the knife tool right now is model, right? You enter the knife and then you start cutting, so that's why it feels a bit limiting. Also, they mention about the undo. So if you undo one step, you undo the whole thing. But that's part of the undo system that you worked on, right? And do you plan to keep working on it?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, some of the improvements that they're mentioning, we can add more undo steps, like so gizmo adjustments or knife tool operations can add more undo steps. Like a lot of this stuff we're not thinking about at the moment because we just have to get 2.8 out and we've already got lots of stuff to do. But yeah, I mean, that's potentially can be added. Yeah.
Awesome. What are these like the top 5 things that it needs to be fixed, for example, for 2.8 that are on like either you plate, like on your plate, for example?
I mean, the tool system for UV editing and just generally like the gizmos, some of them are a bit glitchy or whatever. So just like making those really good. The undo system has some bugs, particularly with texture painting. I don't need to spend time on. Some of the UI stuff to do with redo and the top bar, need time spent on them. They're the main ones. I could probably think of more, but maybe you have some, Bastien.
What are your like top things to fix for 2.80?
Like we were just talking about fixing the test because we have a set of tests and currently they are totally broken, so this has to be taken care of.
So it's a test is like an automated way to try if something works.
Yeah, at least some parts of the program are easily tested that way, so we need to resume it because we had it for 2.7 area, and during 2.8 we just completely broke them and didn't care about fixing them. So this has to be done.
Yeah, that was a bad.
Yeah,
but, we shouldn't have done that. We know we shouldn't have done that. So
bad process, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but this will lead to having a more stable Blender in a way because you know that the tool will keep working as long as it tests.
Yes,
already.
that's the test, and we are probably going to try to enable them on the build bots so that every day they are run, every night when the build is they are run, and we can nearly immediately know if we are breaking something.
Wow, every day there will be a check on every tool now, not every tool, but on every tool that has a test to see if it works or not. Isn't that amazing? Awesome, and that's like the main.
And I mean, I also have probably a lot of fixes in the Blender API, in the ID management, all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of random. Day to day.
Yeah, a lot of bug fixing is left to do. So
bug fixing. So report your bugs if you want to have them fixed. Okay, for example, this question: are there any plans for hybrid rendering in Blender? Do you know, like having cycles rendering only one certain aspects and the rest in Eevee? Wow.
We probably can already do it. Like maybe not that easily, but.
Not automatic.
Not automatic.
They probably want it like really integrated into the workflow.
Yeah.
And the answer is, I guess no, but you're asking the wrong people because we don't do rendering engine development. So
but from the Blender development kind of view, is also like I wouldn't say you should add like, for example, you shouldn't reply if there will be a full feature film of the agent. There will be. Eventually, but yes, it's on the plans, and there will be news actually not too long from now. You should like within a month you should get some news about it. What are your thoughts on VR animation in Blender?
Oh, it's a really exciting project, and we are planning to work on VR in Blender.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean it's on the roadmap. It's not like for the first few releases.
There might even be a GSOC on it, like maybe we're not yet.
So, Summer of Code even.
Might happen,
yeah,
yes.
and there's been a like API released, like how there's OpenGL for graphics or DirectX or whatever. There's a similar standard that's been recently released for virtual reality. So it means that we don't have to like have support for every individual headset, which is ridiculous when you think about it.
Oh, like more unified. Right?
Yeah, so you just say, hey, we write to this API, and then different headsets can plug into it.
Nice. So, it's like writing on like a drawing for every graphics card. That would be silly.
Writing a word processor, and it has to have printer drivers for every model of printer. It's really silly. So, and this is very recent. I think the last few months or something. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, a question about volume rendering, if it has been enhanced. Not sure. Actually, the principal volume shader was broken for Eevee until I think today there was a fix. So if you're using it, try compiling or get the newer version of Blender. And if it hasn't been enhanced, it has been fixed in many ways for Spring, because we use it for the Open Movie Spring, which is already out. So maybe that's what you mean. Let's try and get more questions out. Really excited for 2.80. I want to point little things. One is we could get keyframe jump to just cycle. Just an option in the input editor will do, and like keyframe jump to cycle.
To go back to the previous.
Yeah,
that could be. Yeah, I feel bad saying we could do that because we don't always get around to these things. But that seems like the sort of thing if you were looking into the source code of Blender and you wanted to get into development, that's like a nice quick hack. That you can like a toggle, and then the keymap person, like the person editing the keymap, can enable it. That kind of thing.
Is that something you off the top of your head, you think it could be done just by the keymap, like via the keymap, or?
No, the option would have to be added to
has
the
to be
operator, so you don't need to get into the source code. But it's this kind of thing you could probably do even if you weren't very experienced.
Awesome. Great. Is there documentation for this kind of thing?
No, just like
Look at the code.
just look at the code and search the code and.
Yeah, I think I'm not a developer, but what I would do is would first check out the operator name and then just look at the RNA of it and just see the other options are added and just copy paste and just try to do something like that.
The search for the tooltip usually is a good way.
That's a good one. Good one. Really excited to see an industry standard keymap implemented along with our standard Blender keymap. Will it be sufficiently set up as a working option, and who might be maintaining this keymap?
So I mean, it's in Blender right now. So if you download Blender, it's like in the preferences, you can access it, and William Rainish is maintaining it, and he's being really responsive, and he's been replying to reports of issues.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So
I was testing it.
Yeah.
And now, I can't go.
I had the same thing. You enable it, and I just can't use Blender at all.
Yeah, no. Use preference. Maybe the preferences should always be the same, because then you change it once, and then you have to. Because I was using F4 for the preferences,
Oh, okay. Well,
and then the next time you use preference, you have to use a different. But
it's up to the keymap author. They can do what they like.
All right. So next question. Is there a way to convert annotation layers to grid pencil objects? No, not at the moment.
Yeah.
Then Luciano, great. Congrats to everyone on the Spring team. I would like to know where the animation requests from the team are and if there is planning for them to be implemented. There are many requests that are having...
Yeah, so what we've agreed on is each module owner, because we've sort of reinstated like some of the core modules in Blender, so like animations, modeling, sculpting, VFX. These will be like top level modules, and each module owner will have a task. And if anyone's seen the UI paper cuts, we'll have something a little bit like this, probably not quite as chaotic, hopefully, but a place where module owners can manage like lists of to-dos, like approved, agreed on design tasks and to-dos that will be implemented. And so we just need to sort of I think we're planning to do it today, but so maybe we could link to it. Anyway. So we just have a top level, like these are the things to do, there's child tasks, and each of them will have many, many child tasks, each area. Yeah. So animation will be one of those.
And then, like, Sibren already started working on the feature request from the animation studio here, for the animation guys.
Yeah.
He already did a few experiments and fix.
Awesome. Yeah, because our cloud developer, Sibren, is secretly a Blender developer as well, so whenever he has the time, he's been working on Alembic for a while now, but he's also helping out the animation team to get those features out, especially the ones that are low-hanging fruit that they just you need to have the artist next to you. Next question: is there any way to import an object from another blend file as an instance? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean,
not directly.
I think what the question is. He's asking for, you edit your object, your original object in your library file, and then it immediately shows an update on the files you are working on, the linked.
But you need to have like
you need to reload. Currently, you need to reload the file which is linking the library's data. I mean, I wouldn't do it inside of Blender itself. You could also do it pretty easily with asset management or even another add-on to
asset management.
Yeah,
excited about that.
That could work with an asset management. I mean, this is doable. You just have to add some extra level of communication between the different.
That's awesome. Where are my axes small in Blender? They are in preferences, in viewport, 3D viewport axis. You can have the simple axis. That's the one. I think that's the one you mean. Right? It's there. It's still there. Next question. Material override for Eevee is not there. No, it's only for cycles at the time being. When you are using cycles, you can set in a view layer an override for here for the materials, but not yet for Eevee. It's not a feature yet there. It's not high priority, I think, also for the time being. Shading outline width would be useful. Shading outline width.
Yeah.
Like for this one,
Yeah,
this outline.
yes.
I thought it was possible. No, not anymore in 2.8 because it's a bit more tricky than the way it does in 2.8. Post library, there is no replace update in post. One has to click and then select update. The post library is one of the features that the animation team is wants to polish, and there is an add-on that we're using and that is published, by the way. It's in the GitLab from the Blender Institute, but it's not doesn't come with Blender, the version that we're using. So that's one of the features that it should be part of Blender, or also as an asset manager, part of the asset manager. Next question. Will the remove doubles be moved to the delete menu? There's many people are asking for the remove doubles to be here.
It used to be more easily accessible. I think it was in W menu or
in the specials. It is, but only when you're in
vertex select mode, which is a bit annoying sometimes.
Yeah, you have to have like this for all the settings. Not a big huge fan of this, but this is basically it's still there, but it's not in the X. It kind of makes sense, right? Because you're deleting. It's like a merge.
Yeah, I mean, you could also put it in the merge menu.
The merge, and then you have merge.
Alt.
Oh yeah, because it's remove doubles is basically a merge.
Yeah.
With zero distance.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give a definitive answer to that one because we need to think about it. But it's a good point.
Yes. Will the old gizmo tool return? It is back. Check it out on the top bar.
I think I know what they mean though.
Oh no.
So they say the new one is no. I mean, so the old gizmo. Well, the new gizmo is accessible like it was in 2.7, so you don't have to use the transform tool. You can just enable the gizmo and just leave it.
Yeah, even if you're in a different tool.
And if a tool has a gizmo, it will override it. Otherwise, it'll stay there. I think you mentioned that. But I think what they mean is the new one being slower is a bug on some graphics cards, and I can't redo it. But if someone can redo it,
let us know.
Let us know. I mean, like We'll look into this because it affects enough people and it needs to be fixed for 2.8. So it's one of the bugs we'll have to look into.
Cool. If you have, if you could compile Blender yourself, for example, and have this issue, then it's even more important that you can report the bug, because then we can maybe like contribute, like give you a patch and then you test it and then back and forth with the developers, because developers don't have access to every graphics card out there.
Yeah.
Can you stop changing hotkeys? It makes it impossible to learn 2.80. The best thing would be to bring back the 2.7 hotkeys back. The 2.7 keymap is back, and there hasn't been many changes actually for a while, I think.
No, we haven't changed the keymap.
No,
since F2 was the last one.
Yeah, F2 and F4. Yeah, but before that, for months, there hasn't been any change.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the the hotkeys were brought back, but no actual changes.
Like 2 or 3, like very few.
Yeah, like center and Will bake texture be added to the workbench and Eevee? Not that I know for the time being. It's not like a high priority at the moment, but it could be interesting. The thing is, actually, I asked Clement about this, and he said it would be possible but only on newer graphics cards, and that is like a big, it's a showstopper at the moment, because it would be a feature that is only available if your graphics card allows it. So where to draw the line, right, in those things. Or we wait for a Vulkan, which was another topic that was covered last week. But let's talk in 1 year about it. Basically, what would you think about having features that only work in some hardware?
I mean, I think it's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I also think it's okay. It's like
it's a bit like an extension package. Then we ensure the basics are working on all our supported hardware, and then maybe if there are some very nice to have features that we can make them work on all low level hardware. Then,
I mean, baking's also one of those things where if you open a file that was baked on someone else's computer, you can still see it. It's not like animation playback won't work because you haven't got the newest graphics card or something.
That's true.
So, I mean, nice to avoid, but I think it's okay.
I mean, it's a bit like rendering. You wouldn't expect to render a huge production scene on a basic low-level computer, because you wouldn't have enough memory or power or CPU power. So it's like, depending on what you need to do, you need the correct hardware to do it too.
Yeah. Can you add a search function or a group function to the shape keys and the vertex groups? Actually, there is a search.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah. Every widget that you have that has like this look, for example, like the groups or the shape keys, if you press this very obvious expand icon, you can search. So yeah, everything that has this look, for example, materials, they all have this search widget where you can search and filter, even sort, change the sorting, and yeah. Next question. Please add to Blender native font management. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be pretty nice. But yeah, that's also maybe for another developer to tackle, like this kind of very isolated features. Could Eevee support NVIDIA's ray traced irradiance fields they presented at GDC 2019? Well, like Blender is supposed to, the 2.8 is supposed to run on 10-year/8-year-old hardware. So something that was added a couple months ago is probably could be implemented, but it's it needs to be standardized as well, right? What a wonderful program! Thank you. Any brush updates for Grease Pencil, like adding paint brushes and presets loader? No, not that I know so far. Is there any new? The top bar editing options like normals and options drop down in edit mode, and the symmetry in sculpt mode can be moved closer to the working area. Well.
Funny they should mention that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a patch that's being worked on, but it's planned to be ready for 2.80 that will move the top bar into the editor. So when you're, for example, in edit mode, these two panels are gonna be at the edge of the 3D view, and the same for other editors that have the top bar. Next question: is the export add-on for After Effects going to be updated?
It depends on the author of the add-on, I guess.
Of the add-on, you can ask the author of the add-on,
Exactly.
or ask Adobe to do it. Like when people ask for hey, is this thing for Unity or After Effects, or you can also ask them.
I mean, I think sort of a general statement that applies to all add-ons is add-ons that people depend on and that are fairly popular will probably end up getting updated. We're focusing on Blender, but once Blender's released, or maybe soon before it's released, we'll go over the high priority add-ons that lots of people use and probably update them ourselves if no one else does. Assuming it's not a huge task.
Yeah.
But if it's just basic stuff, I don't see why not.
Depends on the kind of
maybe there is also, because some of the changes in the API shows like the way it's written, maybe it's just running a update.
Like a 5-minute task for someone who's familiar with the API.
Awesome. Will there be a 2020 code quest for 2.81? Would you come for a 2020 code quest?
Yeah, sure. But
if it was shorter, not 3 months.
Like we are supposed to release 2.81 in this autumn.
Oh, okay. Dropping a bomb here.
Much later.
Yeah, so
release numbers.
Not for 2.81, but maybe for like, I don't know, 2.80.
Would be 83 probably.
83, 84, but like it has to be, I think everybody here could be either for wrapping up a project or maybe kickstarting other projects or bigger projects like the Everything Nodes that is being actually worked on, and the idea is that the first deliverable should be in 2.81, right? The idea for
that's not a firm plan.
/82 /83, but it's like a progressive release of these Everything Nodes. So it's almost Everything Nodes.
Almost everything nodes in 3 or 4 years, maybe.
Oh, maybe not that long.
Maybe not that long.
Yes.
You never know.
Interesting. Okay. When is adaptive sampling coming? Adaptive sampling. Actually, there is a development. There is one developer, Stefan.
There's been updates on that patch today. There's no development in that direction.
Right? Is there no development? There is.
There is development.
There is development. You should need to look in the right places or watch Blender.Today, or because there is actually development, and they're on Twitter. Even if you are on Twitter, and the developer is working on it, Stefan, is actually posting pictures and like how it looks. So it's coming eventually. Johan asks, will the 3D mouse users ever get some love? I know that Blender officially has support on it, but feels like it was added just to have it, the space mouse.
Yeah, I've got one at home. I guess you guys have one here too,
Yeah.
but I test Blender with it and I fix bugs when they're reported. So short answer is no near-term plans to like do big changes, but if there's like obvious improvements or ways that it could work differently, I'm sort of happy to look into that.
Cool. So if it's not working for you or like if you see issues, then you can report back.
Yeah, it would be good to know if there's like design issues or areas where like everyone pretty much agrees that it should work differently. But with these things, often people have their own personal preference too. So
yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to see.
Okay, Grease Pencil. About the onion skin buttons, I know the buttons are in the layer tab, but do you think guys could also have them in the dope sheet summary? Could be actually. The Grease Pencil for the Grease Pencil settings for the dope sheet need some attention. Will I be able to move 2.79 files into 2.8 without losing anything? Well, I mean, if you're using Blender internal, you might lose a few things or the game engine, or well, your layers are gonna be converted into collections. So, but actually, mesh data should be okay. Maybe particles.
Mesh data, animations, shakies, all that kind of stuff should.
Most of it should be okay.
I think the main issue will be with material if you are using old
materials from Blender
from the internal, because I don't think we ported those.
There was a plan to have a script that like updated. Did no one want to do that?
It has been done.
Okay.
Still. It might be good to have for.
Might be good. Yeah.
Because we already have a basic wrapper or node, so you could use it to generate. But it wouldn't be a one-to-one mapping anyway. We would lose some data.
Yeah, just basics would be nice.
Yes.
We talked about this. We're aware it's a problem, but okay. I don't think anyone actually did it yet.
No.
So we have to look into it.
And but also once you go to 2.8, you can go back. Just keep it in mind. So make a backup before moving. Just saying.
Well, you can still link back some object data from 2.8 into append back into.
You can append. You can also like Control-C and Control-V to copy objects, but it's not really recommended. So if you go 2.8, just keep that in mind. Noel asks, is the Zebra strip matcap going to be updated for the release? Yes, the matcaps, there is an updated matcap for this particular use, the one that has like this Zebra one. There is the current one is a bit low resolution, as you can see, and there is an updated one, but the it's something that can be done anytime, but it's better if also wait a little bit with these things, because if they're like more matcaps that need to be updated, then we can do them all at once, and instead of doing like once now, and the same with other like other community contributed content. Diego asks, please comment and right click select. This is a proposal about AEC's color space.
Please don't ask us about that.
No, color space is not our or at least these developers.
I mean, there's still work going on that topic. It's known. It's a known to-do topic, but it's like there's no firm plans currently.
No.
And it's not our areas of work. So.
Okay. Is there any female developers in Blender developers team? Yes, there are. 2.8 for the win. I'm just reading some comments from the live stream. Hans, love this show. Keep me up all the recent developments. Thank you. For all those that would love to see Udym support, please visit and right click select and comment and vote this app. Actually, Udym is planned for 281.
Yes, there's a patch for it.
There is a patch for a while already, but there were a few things that were not completed in time for getting in 2.80, because the idea is that 2.80 is feature freeze. So yeah, it's 2.81. Ted Drago, I love the show. This already was asked. And already was asked. And implicit skinning. Is there any plans?
No near-term plans.
No.
So,
I will I would like a real dynamic hair system in Blender with collision.
Yeah, that's part of the long-term, like mid-term plans to rewrite the whole
particles,
hairs, have separated type of objects for particles and for hairs and all that kind of stuff. But it's
awesome. it is planned, but it's
Yes.
for the midterm.
Yes.
And also with everything notes, maybe it can be tackled in that direction.
That would be part of the everything.
Of the everything
project,
notes.
yes.
Awesome.
Definitely.
For new selected objects, outline is visible through other objects. How to disable it?
I think that's intentional.
Yeah, that's
It's kind of useful.
It's
actually.
a feature.
Yeah.
So you can see through even though there's an object in front of it. So you can see what you have selected. And the last but not least,
Well, that's
I have a question, meaning ask you for 3 weeks. Okay, and with this one we can close. So question number 1. From Blender Guru video on micro polygon displacement, I haven't seen it, but it appears to be render-based through micro poly displacement work in accordance to our view in the viewport. I haven't seen the video. Have you guys seen it? No. Yeah.
hang on, he's asking if his camera is moving.
If the camera is moving. What if my camera is moving? A micro polygon displacement happens near the camera. It will.
Should be the case. Yeah.
Well, there is a threshold, right? So it would like kind of flicker in a way. It will adapt. It's adaptive.
I mean, so it should be subdividing finely enough that you don't notice the different subdivisions each update.
Yeah, I think there is a threshold that you can change in the right. If I'm not wrong, there is a threshold that you can say what is the minimum size in pixels. So if it's smaller than that, then it's gonna change. But if you make it like small enough, you're not gonna see the flickering.
And I mean, if he's like using the cycles rendering inside of his viewport, and the viewport is not in the camera view, then I think it's expected that micro displacement would happen based on the viewport view and not on the camera one.
Okay.
It's the active rendering which is doing the trick, I guess.
The trick. Okay. Good point. Question 2. Is there? It seems that I can keyframe the camera icon, render hide on or off for an object. I know that it's obvious that only what is in the camera view gets rendered, but suppose I have a scene where 3 remains in focus for a few frames. Then the camera goes past it. Would hiding that tree in the subsequent frame save me some render time?
No.
I think not much.
Not much.
Nearly
Maybe
no. It's
recalculating the
save a little bit.
VVH.
Yeah, it could save a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think like it's like already clipping things out. Isn't there an option in Cycles to
There
like,
is.
yeah, basically do what you're saying, but without having to manually do it.
Yeah, there is an option in Cycles for like a simplify. So in the render settings, simplify, there is like culling, right? Is that's
I think that's
That
yeah.
should be the
yeah.
one.
So camera culling. So if you enable it, you can see you can cut whatever is, or also distance, whatever is outside of the camera. But remember that if there are objects casting shadows,
Yes.
they're actually like
Or mirrors.
or mirrors, yeah, or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you have reflective objects, then it's not a good idea because then they will flicker, they will change.
So you just increase the margin.
Yeah.
Maybe it works out alright.
But if they're not there, yeah, it's gonna actually make use less memory because they are not part of the render itself. Suppose my camera will go past this tree and then it will turn around. The tree will be visible again. Yes, that's correct. And then, not important question. What are the plans for the Blender game engine after 2.8 is released?
But there won't be a Blender game engine. The plan is sort of to try to have an interactive mode inside of Blender, so to have basically to decouple playback from physics and computation, and yeah, to be able to navigate inside of the main viewport a bit like you would inside of a game, but and have maybe some logic nodes, for example, to handle some basic interaction with it. But that's pretty much it, and for now it's like a mid-term plan too. We don't have any firm schedule for that.
And there's no developers yet who really put their hand up to do it either, which is, anyway, it may get done, but it's not like on anyone's to-do list at the moment.
Okay.
But generally improving physics is, and so the interactive mode needs to have better physics.
Yes.
So that's
totally.
So better fix it. I'm sorry.
Runtime, real-time physics.
real-time physics is also part of everything nodes in a way, I guess, because the interaction mode is going to use like a sort of logic,
Yeah,
and it will be node-based. So yeah, expect a bunch of nodes in the future. I
right
think.
now it's just general ideas. We don't have any real design for it, so it's
Yeah, like everyone has a lot on their plates basically for 2.8. So all these interesting projects that we have like talked about or whatever, we're not going to say, yeah, we'll do that, you know, in the next year or whatever, because there's just so much going on already.
Yeah. So we are actually 7 minutes past the time. Actually, we are late, but I just wanted to keep them hanging around here for a bit longer because they're gonna leave like this week, next week.
This week.
Okay.
Sunday or something like that.
Okay, but I can convince other developers to come and be part of it. It's actually pretty nice to have you guys over here. The home stretch was about wrapping up the topics that you have to work on for finishing, for wrapping up, for releasing 2.80. Yeah. But there's also 2.81 projects that are to look forward to. What are your favorite projects that you're gonna work on in the future, in 1 year from now, or like from here, like within 1 year? Like, is there anything that you're looking forward to? Like, I want to get over this 2.80 thing, and I want to work on the one feature.
I want to finish what I've been working on for years already. So the static, well, not static overrides, no, it's called library overrides. And of course, the whole asset management system, ecosystem, that has to be, like, it's nearly done, but it has to be a little bit polished and define which steps we want to implement first and have a schedule to get this working.
Awesome. So static, library overrides and asset management.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, and probably for me, I mean, it's not so much in a year, but the tool system, there's lots of interesting tools that we could add. Like previously, our modeling tools was limited by the number of keys on the keyboard. So there's lots of like nice tools that you could have, but they'd be nested away in some menus. So we could have more interesting tools, mainly for modeling, but also animation and other things. And what else? Yeah,
so that's something that you really
I like
enjoy
to do it.
doing.
And make sure add-ons can do their own tools too. Aside from that, probably just mesh editing and stuff like that. Modifiers, the modifier nodes, I could help Jack with that.
What about parametric modeling? It's something people are asking, and it's also part of, I guess, from everything nodes again, in a way.
It's part of. It's mostly part of the modifier nodes.
The modifier stack
side of the project, because once we have that as node, it's kind of easy to have the parametric modeling inside of the node.
Wow, I can't really imagine what's gonna be like the life after 2.80, right? When with so many new developers making patches, and I get people here asking about the. About how to contribute, how to be part of it. Have you noticed already for 2.80 an increase in developers trying to help providing patches in the last year?
I think so. It's been difficult because I haven't had as much time to review patches as I should. Yes. So if I've ignored your patch, I'm sorry. But I think we have had...
This has been the problem for all of us developers. We have been so much fixed on bug fixing that we have a huge amount of patches that need to be checked and reviewed and taken care of and everything.
Yeah, and the issue is if the patch is doing something which isn't really important, or it isn't like an obvious fix or improvement, we tend to just postpone it
for like the next release, or like whenever there is time for it, or
for the release cycles that we want to start again.
But because we haven't released 2.8 in like a long time, there's quite a lot of patches to go over.
Like a backlog of patches to go through. Awesome. Well, so with that note, the people keep asking, when is the release date? Well, we hope it's gonna be July. That's the target, and it's been extended for many times. But this is it. It's like has to be. There is already a plan for it. There is a release plan on the code blog, code.blender.org. But there will be also a new blog post this week, maybe with a little video, where we're going to be answering some of the questions about what happened here this week in the home stretch. So, with that being said, thank you guys for dropping by. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Fine, yeah.
Yeah, I hope you had fun. It's always super fun to have people over. Makes my life so much easier. And I'm a bit lost with the chat, but everybody seems to be pretty positive with it. So thank you everybody for the love here. And I think it's time to wrap it up. I hope you had fun and download Blender. Remember, a release is just a stamp. Really, like you can download Blender every day. Just a release, there will be no difference between the day of the release and the Blender the day before the release, other than the splash screen probably or something, right? Yeah. So
probably something like that.
Anything you want to tell the community? Report bugs, don't report bugs.
Yeah, report bugs, and thanks for your support, of course, because we couldn't work without you. So
exactly, actually,
yes,
they are they're full-time developers for many years now, and this is mainly thanks to the Blender Development Fund. So thank you to all the supporters. And if you're not there yet, you can join in fund.blender.org. And that is my advertisement for the day. Exactly. And click and subscribe and join and hit that subscribe button. And okay, that is all for me. Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for being here. And I will see you again next week. Same place, same time. Ciao.
Okay.